A head turn is a basic animation movement that should be an early exercise when learning animation.
In film, it's mainly used as a reaction shot. Because it's a very simple movement, it's often used as a way to test the static design for an actual animation pipeline.
When you do this exercise, your character will not only come to life for the first time, but also you'll be able to recognize if the design is expressive and easy to animate, or if the design is overcomplicated and stiff.
You will be able to decide what type of movement will look best with your design. A character with realistic proportions may look bizarre if it is moving with a ton of smears, or squashes and stretches like a Looney Tunes character.
Learning to animate a head turn usually lands somewhere between learning to make a ball bounce and learning to make a walk cycle, and definitely before learning to make a character dance. Which is why I'm happy to announce that we're re-releasing all of our old animation videos now under new titles, so they will finally be in order. This was the plan all along, guys.
Yeah, so if you happen to have any old laser discs or rips of our old videos, go ahead and destroy them now, because after this, we are selling the channel to Disney.
They offered us $8 billion.
BAM is the show where professional animation artists redraw the art that you send in. And if you like supporting that sort of thing, check out our Patreon linked below.
You'll need to understand two things before you animate a head turn. Spacing, which is a concept that we discussed in our award-winning character animation video, and how to do a character turnaround, which we discussed in our Nobel Peace Prize winning video about the same thing.
You will also need some animation software, which there are a number of options, including some very painful ones.
And you will need a character to turn. For this episode, we will be working with Willow, who was sent to us by Molly. Molly is a viewer of the channel and sent her art to BAM. If you want to see your art featured in an episode, send it to bam.redrawmyart@gmail.com.
Animation is a handmade medium that has to be redrawn 24 times a second. And characters with lots of details are really difficult to animate. And Willow here has a ton of tiny extraneous details that look good for illustration, but would not work well for animation.
The freckles, the extra eye lines, and the nose shadows all need to go. And we're going to simplify her hair a bit, too.
Planning and creativity seem like they are two things that are at odds with each other, but in animation and other art forms where there can be objective quality, planning is a fundamental component of good execution. So we need to come up with an idea for the motion we want and how we're going to get there.
Like, there are so many options for how she could turn her head. For example,
in a very mechanical sense, she could just move her head from A to B without emotion or feeling. She could ease super slowly at first and then snap. Or we could have her sort of jump up and notice something and then kind of snap turn. I kind of like the last one. So let's try to figure out how to convert this motion into drawings. I'm going to do an initial series of exploratory drawings where I'm just going to try to figure out how it's going to work. This is called thumbnailing, and it's how animators loosely plan the acting. We need to go from here to here, and I want her to jump up a little bit, so I'll add a drawing in here, and then add some space on the timeline before she goes to pose B. This new drawing here is going to be the frame where her eyes are kind of wide, and it'll be just a little bit exaggerated.
As you can kind of see, Brent is drawing on top of other drawings so that he can keep track of things. This method of drawing over top of barely visible layers is called potato skinning. Well, it's not actually called that, but if you do want to correct me in the comments, go for it so that we can get that engagement up.
Okay, let's add two more drawings to this. The first one will be the anticipation pose, where she actually moves down first before coming up, so that we get sort of a bounce up motion. And then I'm going to add a breakdown frame somewhere between these two drawings so that she can get from here to here.
The wrong way to do breakdown drawings is to put a drawing exactly in the center of the animation. That creates a situation where you have even spacing between your drawings, and it looks very mechanical. What we want to do is put a drawing somewhere close to the first frame so that she kind of eases into the turn and snaps. This is what it looks like on a graph. Imagine this ball is the movement of her face. The frames are all spaced together super evenly. Like, nobody moves like this. And on this graph, I've got a lot more areas of close together frames and dynamic spacing. This motion is going to look a lot more interesting and breathe life into the character.
Also check this out. Even though there is only one frame at the bottom, we still read the motion as a smooth arc. your brain fills in the implied movement.
Think about this stuff the next time you animate. Like if a character is reaching down to grab something, does it happen in a bunch of super evenly spaced drawings like a robot? Or is there an opportunity to have dynamic motion?
Oh, and I'm going to have her close her eyes here too, because animated characters always seem to blink whenever they turn around. Okay, we're talking about spacing between the drawings, but what about time between the drawings? If we look at my timeline, I've got drawings here, and I can adjust how long they're on screen by just adding more held frames. So even though I only have 11 drawings, it's still enough for me to get the sense of how it will look, and I can add and subtract frames until it feels right. Now, I personally like to animate on twos, so while I'm drawing and adding frames, I like to ensure that they all end up on even, I meant odds, frame numbers. That way I don't have parts of the animation that are on ones and other areas where it's on twos. Now, you don't have to have super consistent frame rates when you're animating. It could be a jumbled mess of different frame speeds, but I personally like to keep the frame rates super consistent because back in the old days, they didn't really just, have the ability to change rates at random. And I kind of wanted to preserve that consistency in my artwork.
So here's what the thumbnail pass looks like now. Notice where the close together frames are. Kind of reminds you of my graph from earlier, right? Well, as you get better at animation, you'll be able to imagine the spacing before you even put down your first drawing. And that's what X sheets are. But that's for a different video, so hit that subscribe button.
So now that I know what I want the motion to look like, I can do it again, but a little bit better. I will trace the character model to keep the design consistent, and I will spend more time roughing out the key poses, which are here, to make these drawings the best. The key poses of animation are what really hold the motion together, but the other drawings, like the breakdowns and the in-betweens, are more about facilitating the movement. So oftentimes they may look a bit strange because they were trying to fill in from A to B while maintaining the right spacing. So people that screenshot these frames in order to make fun of them are just revealing that they don't know how animation works.
Wow, look at that, we have our rough pass complete. Also, check out these frames here. The hair drags behind and then settles after the head movement is complete. This is called secondary animation, and it's good to have on parts of your characters that would move independently, so that you can avoid having your characters feel like they're made out of rigid plastic.
I'm going to clean this up using a special brush in Harmony so that it kind of looks like a pencil test. Even though Harmony is a vector program, it has many different brushes that can look texturized.
The vector lines that you make in Harmony can be adjusted after you draw them. If you draw with the brush, your lines are shapes, and you can edit the shape. And if you draw with the pencil tool, your lines are strokes, and you can change the path.
But I'm not going to worry about perfectly smooth vector lines. For this, instead, I'm going to treat it more like a sketch and build up these forms, just like I would with a pencil in real life. So I wish I could say that this was the end and that all of the hard work was over, but after showing this to some of my friends, they all commented that it sort of looked like her head was telescoping up and her body was changing sizes after the turn.
Part of being an artist is learning to accept criticism and then actually taking action on it and correcting those mistakes. Bad artists get defensive about their work, but good artists are willing to address these problems and fix broken drawings. You will never be able to work in any creative field unless you are willing to change your art for your supervisor or your client.
So here it is. This is the final adjusted version, where I reduced the head pop a little bit and I fixed her torso size. This is one of the faster animations that I worked on, but even something like this that is really only 1 second of animation still took me more than a day's worth of work. So just something to think about next time you watch your favorite animated show.
Animation is slow, it's painstaking, and it's expensive to make, which is why so many shows today are produced with vast teams of animators using puppet animation or some kind of digital hybrid process that combines drawings with rigging.
But a head turn is a simple enough traditional animation exercise that you can do it yourself so that you can see your characters come to life.
So maybe try something like this before diving into animating a whole episode of something all by yourself.
Remember guys, animation is best learned by completing small exercises in tiny bite-sized chunks.
There's a lot of value in learning to animate by hand because you can make something really cool looking that captivates people's attention, but in a way that no other medium can.
So if you want to see us animate one of your characters, or if you just want to see us redraw it, send your art to bam.redrawmyart@gmail.com.